Welcome back. All right, it's time for us to touch base now with our politics desk in today's Politics Wrap. And SABC News reporter Natasha Perry now joins us in studio. And Natasha, one would say there's been lots of developments in the GNU, with the latest now being the UDM to join.
Definitely, Bali. Thank you so much. And of course, we will get to that, the UDM being the latest political party to actually join the GNU. But on to this story right now. The international community is monitoring what is happening in South Africa as President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to meet with political parties that have agreed to join the Government of National Unity. Speaking to SABC News, Aspen Pharmacare Senior Executive Director Dr. Stavros Nicolaou, who attended the conference on vaccine in Paris, France, says he spoke to some delegates about political developments in South Africa.
I think there are two reactions. The first thing is I got to speak to yesterday David Cameron, who is the British Secretary of State. I got to speak to President Macron's team, a few other heads of state. They are watching very closely and carefully what is going on in South Africa. I think they're encouraged. Certainly, David Cameron was encouraged with the developments. The Government of National Unity, he's keeping a very close watch on it. You know, the UK, Britain is a partner of South Africa's. The reaction from the Africans was also very positive. But I might add just secondly that many of these countries are facing their own elections. So here where I am in France today, President Macron called for a snap election, and that's going to happen next weekend is the first round. So there's a lot of angst and I suppose anxiety in France at the moment as to which way this is going to go. So in the UK, we know that Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has called a snap election, which is coming up, and just speaking to some delegates, it's expected, delegates yesterday, it's expected there might be a change in the UK government as well. So this is not a phenomenon unique to South Africa, because I've just mentioned two countries that are G7 countries who are both likely, or certainly in the case of the UK, it seems could have a new government. So it's not unique to our country, but the news around South Africa, the Government of National Unity, has been very positively received in the circles that I spoke to yesterday. And I think the markets have reacted positively as well. So generally, it's a positive message coming out of South Africa.
Now, some people in Limpopo say they are eager to see what the highly anticipated new national cabinet will look like. President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to announce a newly constituted 7th Administration Cabinet under the Government of National Unity in due course.
The new cabinet is expected to bear some resemblance to the 1994 Government of National Unity. The then cabinet saw, among others, the last president of apartheid South Africa, F.W. de Klerk, occupying the position of the second deputy president. During his inauguration speech, President Ramaphosa emphasized that the results of this year's general elections expressed people's disapproval of how government performed. He also reiterated that voters gave leaders further opportunities to correct some wrongs. Some members of the public believe the synergy in the Government of National Unity cabinet will steer South Africa in the right direction.
I think we will see a better performing government because we will be having people from various political parties. The ANC will be held accountable. I foresee changes because ministers will be working for the public. We will not see them working for their comrades. I have never been hopeful. I think many problems will be solved this time.
For others, a fair mixture of experience and youthful vibrancy in the new cabinet will do the country a world of good.
It should not appoint too many young people. Young people are easily disrupted. We need to see ministers and deputies with experience.
The president must not bring back those old ministers. They can't be trusted. They will ruin the government.
Political analyst Enoch Maponya says the fact that markets have reacted positively after the swearing in of members of parliament last week signals a better future for the country. Although the economy remains volatile, the rand has gained some strength against several major global currencies over the last few days.
The economy is going to stabilize. In fact, since last Friday, when parliament was constituted, the value of the rand started stabilizing. So the appointment of cabinet will definitely strengthen the rand further. But on the other hand, we have got the challenge of the president having to include all the current 7 political parties that are in the government of national unity itself. It's not an easy task to constitute that cabinet. The DA has indicated that they've agreed with the ANC that 60% of cabinet members should be for the ANC, 30% for the DA, and 10% for the other parties. Now, say at the highest number, we have got, say there are 30 cabinet posts. It means the other 5 parties will be left with 3 cabinet posts, and how are they going to share those 5 cabinet posts? Because politics is a power game.
President Ramaphosa is believed to be still consulting stakeholders before composing the new cabinet. Rutando Bobori, SABC News in Polokwane.
The United Democratic Movement is the latest political party to join the government of national unity. This has increased the list of political parties that will form the GNU up to 8. The UDM announced it had accepted the ANC's proposal this afternoon. UDM leader Bantu Olomisa shared a letter that was sent to the ANC's Secretary General Fikile Mbalula detailing their response.
The United Democratic Movement has been in the vanguard of calling for GNU and coalition akin economic codessa for ages. Not a single political party is going to lecture us on that. What we wanted at the time, since there was no speaker, and that President Cyril Ramaphosa was announcing that GNU policy as the leader of the ANC, not the state. Now that there is a speaker, there's a president, we are ready to interpret the decision of the voters, being that let the power be shared among political parties. And the agreement which was signed by DA and ANC and IFP, that is between ANC and those parties. We are still yet to develop a proper agreement and rules and regulations where everyone will sign. And I'm sure even those who are outside will join them. But for now, we are happy that we will be part and parcel of drafting those rules and regulations.
Political analyst Sandile Swana joins us for more. Mr. Swana, thank you so much for your time. I think you've heard the interview there with the leader of the UDM, Bantu Olomisa. They're the latest party to actually join the government of national unity. But it was quite interesting because they were in the Progressive Caucus. You would remember that a party like the PAC and the UDM last week in Cape Town in Parliament had requested and sought the audience of the ANC on the GNU. And now you've seen these two political parties joining the government of national unity. What do you make of this?
Thank you so much, Natasha. The parties that have not yet joined the GNU, including the UDM, for instance, were unsure about certain things that were important to them. As you are aware, General Bantu Holomisa and the UDM have stood for the formation, have called for the formation of the Government of National Unity, as well as the CODESA 2 program, which is now called the National Dialogue. So he needed to be sure, they did need to be sure that the ANC is going to go in that direction. So it took long for that to be done. That is where they are. So you may well find that there are other parties that have got certain things that are not clear that they would want clarity on. So the formation of the GNU is still continuing for the reason that the statement of intent is not clear on maybe some very critical matters, and some may support the GNU more after the CODESA 2 process. So this is a long process for all the parties, because people don't want to be implicated in something that has got a limited scope of work, and that may surprise them and drag them into failure later on.
Okay, I just want us to put the GNU discussions aside just for a second. And I mean, I think that the whole country is very anxious to hear, to see who these new cabinet ministers are. We know that President Cyril Ramaphosa has been consulting the signatories in the GNU, as well as the Tripartite Alliance, the SACP, COSATU, the leagues of the ANC on this new composition of the GNU cabinet. And of course, we've heard time and time again that this GNU cabinet must reflect, or must be reflective of this GNU framework or government, for lack of better words. What would you expect coming out of the president's announcement?
As I understand, the president has not yet announced the cabinet, and even the rules of decision making, which the DA contested heavily, and the ANC contested heavily, we have not yet the DA back down to admit that they were wrong. Nevertheless, the people who are anxious for a cabinet to be formed and announced by Cyril Ramaphosa are not necessarily in the right by doing that, because Cyril Ramaphosa has formed cabinets before that have failed to deliver, have brought us to this crisis. And the ANC has formed many, especially after the Polokwane conference, that have failed. So there is a need to go through a thorough process, and it would have been better if the cabinet was formed after the CODESA 2, where the work that needs to be done is clear and people are aligned with their competencies to that work.
I just also want to know and take you back to what actually happened this past week. We saw various disagreements between parties in the GNU. Earlier on this week, my colleague Clement Manyathela had spoken to the DA's Federal Executive Chairperson, Helen Zille. She raised her dissatisfaction, saying that she was not consulted about the inclusion of the PA in the GNU. Yesterday, we heard Gayton McKenzie also lashing out at Helen Zille, accusing her of using mad bullying tactics to get away with, to get her way, I beg your pardon, the GNU. Should we be worried about these disagreements so early in the GNU?
Yes, the threat to the GNU, which some of us anticipated, would have been the bullying tactics of the DA versus the bullying tactics of the ANC. There have been many people, including big business in South Africa, and perhaps some Western powers, who have identified certain political parties who must be excluded from the GNU. And in making the type of suggestion that the DA made, that they want to be the ones who vet other political parties from coming in, it is very difficult to imagine how anyone could make it their duty to vet which political parties get into the GNU, except to represent Western capitalist interests and the interests of big business in South Africa that would seek to undermine the will of the voters of South Africa.
Okay.
So
And
that was a mistake already at a very early stage. And I anticipate that these mistakes by the DA, on the one hand, to bully South Africans, and by the ANC to bully South Africans again in the manner that they've done for the past 15 years, that is the danger to this GNU.
Mr. Sana, also, I just want to get your thoughts on, I think you've seen it already, the Freedom Front Plus saying that the ANC has accepted their condition to recognize Orania, but the ANC just coming back and saying that they did not agree to recognize Orania. It's actually a non-negotiable for them.
Yes. You know, we have problems here where the culture of mistrust, there is mistrust, it has been measured, it's reported on among South Africans. There's mistrust among politicians and mistrust between the politicians and the nation itself. That then combines with people who want more power than what they legitimately should get. And that to that is added what Thabo Mbeki once highlighted as the pursuit of political objectives through lying. There is a culture of mendacity and duplicity that has entered South African politics over the past 15 years, where people tell lies in order to achieve political objectives. It's a tragedy and erosion of the moral fiber of the nation of South Africa.
You read through the statement of intent, and some political parties, have signed it. But I mean, you go through it, and it says that the needs of South Africans need to be put first, and the GNU signatories need to work together in good faith. Is this enough, though? Should the GNU not actually be legally binding? And I mean, can it actually work without it being legally binding?
No, this statement, it already has got serious omissions in it. I think when you sign it, at best, it's probably got to be understood to just be a symbol that you do want to be a government to be part of the government of national unity. At this document shows that although, for instance, people such as the DA and certainly many major intellectuals in South Africa have told the ANC, and the DA said they've known for a long time that we're going to end up where we've ended up in terms of the votes. But the preparation, for instance, this statement and all the clauses pertinent to it should have been prepared maybe 6 months before, long ago, and everything else that is going to happen, the national dialogue and everything else. So you can see that this is a very hard job and is seriously substandard. And because this work is substandard, it is precipitating conflict. And it shows that our leaders are doing things on the fly. These are not people with foresight. They are haphazard and very ad hoc in what they are doing.
And I hear what you're saying, Mr. Sana, but what if a political party is not happy, with certain things? And what if they actually decide to pull out of the government of national unity? What actually then happens?
I didn't hear the question. The voice coming through is not clear.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you can try again.
Yes, Mr. Son, I was just saying, and I was just asking, what happens if a political party down the road decides that the GNU is not working for them or their constituency, and they decide to leave the GNU? What then happens in that case?
Yes, I anticipate that is going to happen. That is going to happen, and I think that is why Cyril Ramaphosa and the ANC are trying to make the GNU as broad as possible. My prediction is that if this GNU lasts, it will be a GNU of remainders, of the remainder. There are enough grounds for conflict as things stand going forward. And there are things that we already know that should have already been clarified in the statement of intent, that should have been quite specific in the state, that are not specific. So clearly there's enough room for conflict here.
Okay. Mr. Swana, we do understand that there's going to be a national dialogue process amongst members of the GNU. They also want to rope in civil society, labor, business and other sectors to discuss the critical challenges facing the nation. According to the GNU partners, they say the national dialogue process will seek to develop a national social compact that enables the country to meet the aspirations of the National Development Plan. They'll also hold a lekgotla around this. What is your expectations and what do you think are likely actually to come out of this national dialogue process?
Yes, the National Development Plan was developed, and the latest reports, there's one prepared by the Government Progress Report on the NDP, and another one before that was prepared by the University of Stellenbosch, that show clearly that the government has failed to deliver on the National Development Plan. I'm talking failing dismally here. So the reasons for this failure have been the fact that the state has been denuded of capacity. In other words, capable civil servants have been removed on the one hand, and incompetent people installed systematically across the state, including criminals. Similarly, in the cabinet, the culture of appointing high-capacity people has been also abandoned. So that HR work is got to be 95% of the problem, of the solution. The other part of the solution is that the planning systems of the state have got to be activated, because the state has been operating on visions, not on systematic plans that can be implemented and measured properly and so on and so forth. The South Africa at this stage is not a nation of planning. There are clear backlogs that the AG has identified. There are international reports, for instance, on organized crime that have showed us that we are actually becoming a mafia state very rapidly and so on and so forth. So there is recorded. The areas that we are failing in are thoroughly recorded. So, but you do need the planning systems and the HR, human resources, actual, physical, highly competent, honest people to get in there. We are not clear, we are not confused about what needs to be done, which is why I'm saying this statement of intent is very worrisome, because it doesn't go to the precise areas that have already been identified in quantified terms to say this is what we're going to do and this is the extent to which we're going to do it. Okay. That would have inspired a bit of confidence about the seriousness had they done that, but nevertheless, they must still do it, and therefore there's no need to rush this. We can give ourselves the next 6 months to get this thing in order. Because it's not in order right now.
And just lastly, Mr. Swana, Dr. John Hlophe has now been appointed the MK party leader in Parliament. What experience do you think he'll bring to the MK party and the caucus there in Parliament?
John Hlophe, there is no doubt, even amongst his worst critics, that is an extraordinarily brilliant chap, extraordinarily gifted individual, and he did his work in the Western Cape very, very well. Now, there are differences about his ethics in terms of him being a supporter of Zuma or being ideologically aligned during the time that he was there. So that ideological alignment, which may have been a handicap when he was a judge, will serve him well as a politician. He is a gifted person, and let's see what he can do. But it's time for him to redeem himself somehow.
Mr. Swana, thank you so much for your insights, and thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Of course, that was Sandile Swana, political analyst. So this is where I leave you, and of course I leave you in the capable hands of Mbali Tetani.